guys. Great to see everybody here. I don't know how many of you are out there on Zoom, but we have a really nice crowd here in the studio too. So a little bit, I learned to actually paint the landscape plein air. That's how I learned, and I am so grateful for that. I did a 10-week course with Carl Demple. We went out every Saturday, I think it was, and painted locally all around California, Los Angeles area. And he was just an invaluable teacher and just really great. And painting plein air, how many of you guys paint plein air? Well, photographs lie to you. People think that it looks like the photograph. It doesn't, honest to God. Your eyes see so much more. A photograph, it'll make the shadows look really black, right? And in nature, is there anything that's really black? And certainly not shadows. If you look around, shadows are blue and purple and all these really amazing colors. So your eye really sees so much more than a photograph will. And that's one of the things that I really learned from painting plein air. And if you can't go out and do it plein air, you can just go in your backyard and paint there, and this will really help you to learn to see as an artist and to really understand what it is you're seeing. It's so valuable. So one of the things that, I often do jurying, and I'm going to be jurying the show here. This is a wonderful plein air show. And I wanted to show this little chart here, which is kind of a neat chart that's a pyramid. And what it does is it shows how a good painting comes about and what's important. So you see down in the very bottom, the big area on the bottom of the triangle is composition. Now, you might have a painting that you've been working on and you put it aside and then you bring it out again and you work on it some more, and it's been like months and maybe even years that you've been working. It just doesn't work. It's probably because the composition isn't strong. Composition is the foundation of your painting. Without a good composition, nothing you do is going to make it work. That composition, like I said, it's like the foundation, has to be strong, right? Then you go to values. Values then show you what's important in the painting. And one of the things that I have learned is somebody said to me that colors in the shadow are more important than the colors in the light. And it was like a light bulb went off, because I was using this kind of same color in all the shadows. This kind of blue, kind of neutral, dark kind of thing everywhere. And when they said that, I went, oh, and my paintings just suddenly took on a whole different life. You can see when you think of shadows, not just as shadows, but as colors, your painting will take on more dimension. Then you have colors here, which I was just talking about. A lot of people say color gets all the credit and composition and value do all the work, and that's kind of true. We always say, oh, I love the colors. Oh, I want to paint with all the colors, But colors are interchangeable. For instance, if I do a painting and it's a scene, and I decide I'm going to make it a night scene, it's easy to do that. I just change the colors. The composition's there, the values are all there. I just change the colors. So colors. Think about Andy Warhol when he did those portraits of Marilyn Monroe. The composition is the same, right? He just changes all the different colors, right? And then above that is edges, comes next. Edges, I think, are one of the last things that most artists get into, and they are tricky, not easy to kind of not make everything really hard edge, but to have soft edges in there, very important. And then at the very, very top is details. I often find, I teach out at Klein Academy of Fine Art, which is downtown in Culver City, and everybody wants to start with the details, all the new students. And I go, no, 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 that's the very last thing you put in. At the very end. It's not that it's unimportant, but it's the last thing you worry about. Okay? And one of the things I studied, composition with Edgar Payne's compositional book. If you are familiar with it, it's really wonderful. He reduces everything down into simple shapes. So this is, a scene down in Balboa Island. And I painted this plein air, right? This is the plein air piece that I did right there. And this is the structure of that plein air piece, right? This is what the underlying structure looks like, the composition. Strong shapes. There's an S curve in it, which I love S curves, and many of my paintings have S shapes in them, And then this is the studio painting that I did after I had done this, right? You can see that the studio painting has a lot more, kind of color in it. This is more neutral. But what happened was I started using these browns and these darker colors in the big piece, and I hated it. It just looked so drab. And so I got really frustrated and put a brush right through the canvas and started all over, One of the things that I also try and teach my students is that perfection is highly overrated. Don't try and be perfect. You are where you are in your artistic journey. You can't do better than you can do right now, right? You'll learn later. You'll learn more and get better. But where you are right now is where you are, okay? Now, does anybody have any, I prefer if you have questions, ask me as I'm going through, because it's hard at the end to kind of recap. And, I'm doing things, quite fast, so. Because I did learn painting plein air, I approach my paintings, whether it's a portrait, a still life, or a landscape. I approach it all the same. And this is the are the steps involved that I actually do. So I'm going to just show you this so you can kind of see. I start by just drawing in the essential elements, the horizon, and all the different elements that I need to do. I start to work dark to light, so I put in the shadows next. All the darks go in. Then the third is it takes the longest. It's where you look at your reference and you look at it and say, what are 4 or 5 main masses? So in this is down in Laguna. There's number 1 is the sky. Number 2 is the water. And the water includes this water down here, so it's kind of like a triangle that comes out. That's number 2. Number 3 is the sand, right? And number 4 is the cliff and the rocks. And when you reduce it down to those simple masses, it suddenly becomes very doable, very easy to understand. Notice, no detail yet. Once I have this, I can look at this and say, well, the ocean's too dark, or the cliff is too big, or I don't like the color of this. I can rearrange things because I haven't spent time on the details. So I can change things so that the shapes work. Again, composition. I'm always thinking of composition. Then I get into the details. Then come the details. And what's funny is the reason I actually painted this scene is because of the wave. But notice, step 3, I don't even have the wave in here, right? I have to know that it's going to work once I put it in. I have to have faith. Now, not every one of my plein air paintings work out. Sometimes they're frisbees. That's just the way it is. Ask any painter. If they're honest, they're going to tell you at least 30% of your paintings are just not great. 30%, somebody might like it and buy it, and then a third are good. And that is a good percentage. I mean, imagine if every time you painted, it was a masterpiece. It just doesn't work that way, guys. Every painting is practice for the next. Practice for the next one. I never worry, that way that painting doesn't become precious. Just practice for the next one, right? I'm just practicing. So once you kind of take that attitude, you get a whole different kind of perspective on your paintings. And it becomes fun. Right now I'm working on a big painting at home it's mostly sky, a sunset. And I haven't done a lot of sunsets, so it's not easy to do. And I struggled with it, you know, I wasn't happy. So I just went in there and I said, okay, this top area is boring, and I just took some of the color of the cloud, and I put in another cloud and shaped it differently, and now I like it. And that spontaneous kind of attitude towards your painting, not worrying about, oh, I'll ruin it. Oh, you know, oh no, I put so much effort into it. I can't, you know, just, you know, go over it like that with the brush. It stifles you and keeps you from having really the creative spurts that you should have. Because when you're creative, you can't just continually create and get better and better and better. You have plateaus. It goes up and then sometimes maybe down a little bit, and then up again, and you know, you have these steps and starts and you know, stops happening in your creative process. But if you're not willing to take a chance, you're going to be kind of in a box. So take those, you know, take chances. Try something different. Okay. So now I'm painting this grove of eucalyptus and lupine in the bottom, and this is actually at not Kenneth Hahn. Yeah, it is Kenneth Hahn. And I don't know if you guys know where Kenneth Hahn is, but it's down in Culver City. And it's in the middle of the city, and it's just a beautiful park. It's got a lake and a pond that has.
So we can see your palette, and so what are you mixing?
I'm mixing a little bit of transparent oxide red with some ultramarine blue, and I have put some Gamsol in there.
Can you tell us what Gamsol is? Because some people like to know.
Gamsol is a odor-free turpentine. I have terrible allergies. I'm allergic to the paint. I'm allergic to the turpentine. I'm allergic to everything. That's why this is so great that this is open like this, because, you know, I don't even keep my Gamsol in my studio. I keep it out on the porch, because even though it doesn't smell, it does give off fumes. And your paints give off fumes too, you know, remember that. Now, a lot of people will use a pencil. I'm not one of them. I kind of sketch right on the canvas with paint. That's how I like to do it. So I'm just gonna, and I'm actually, I did send you guys references, but I thought I had one at home, but I didn't. So I'm gonna paint actually from the painting. Okay, so I'm gonna just, you know, put in kind of the horizon, kind of work the horizon in, you know.
Is it okay if we take photos?
Sure. And then I have this wonderful grove of eucalyptus that's here. And I'm just gonna kind of. Now, it's funny because my paintings in general look like they're quite tight, but you'll see I'm pretty sloppy when I paint. I'm not real careful. I like to kind of enjoy myself and just kind of put a lot of paint on. So I tend to kind of do things quickly and not really worry too much about the details, like I said.
Can I ask what your painting on and if you toned it?
Yes, I did tone the canvas. I always tone canvases. I like having a little bit of color on the canvas. If you think about having just white canvas, it's so stark. It's very to me, distracting against the paint. And my values, I have a lot of trouble then with the values and kind of working with those values. So I tend to like to tint it. This is a panel with canvas.
Can you move over just a touch to your left a little?
This way?
Yeah, great.
Here I am. This is a panel with canvas and that's glued onto the panel. And the reason you do this is because if you use a canvas that's stretched, the sun comes through the back and it distorts the colors and stuff. So you need a panel as opposed to a stretched canvas. I'm not real particular. I used to be much more particular when I first started out with all of my supplies, and I had to have this brush and this color and this. Now I'm not that way. I just buy what's cheapest when I see it's on sale and work with that. I do have. Let me talk about my palette for a minute. I have an extended palette that I use, but if you're just starting and you want to paint like I do, more impressionistic, as opposed to classical painting. And I made that decision, I didn't want to paint like the old masters, like Rembrandt. Rembrandt, when he was alive, you have to understand, he had a very limited palette. They painted that way because that's how they had to paint. They had, burnt umber, burnt raw umber. They had a red, they had a white, and they had yellow. They had no blues, no purples, no greens.
And no tubes.
Right? So, and you look at Rembrandt's, that's why they painted. So their paintings are very value-oriented, dark on light, because they didn't have the colors. Well, guess what happened when suddenly all these colors came available? The Impressionists. Because then it was not about values, it was about color. And even if Monet had not lived, it would have happened, because it had to do with the supplies, what was available to them. Right? It's the same way, Andy Warhol came along because of acrylic paint. Suddenly it was like, and doing all the silk screens that he did. So, my palette, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, forget that one, forget those, you don't need those. You need a warm and a cool of the primaries. I like 3 yellows though, lemon yellow, cad yellow medium, and yellow ochre. And then you need cadmium red and alizarin crimson. I also have in the corner over here is transparent oxide red. It's really a brown, but it's a transparent brown. So instead of like burnt sienna, which kind of, if you mix it with your colors, it kind of stomps on the color and makes it mud. The transparent oxide red I got from Richard Schmid, if you're familiar with him. He just passed away this last year, and wonderful, amazing artist. He uses transparent oxide red, and when I used it, it was like, oh, this you can mix, and you can just kind of make things earthy without stomping on color and making it mud, right? And then titanium white, and then I have down here, this is, what is that one? Shell pink, that's shell pink. I like to use that sometimes if I don't, because white can sometimes make things chalky. This color will just lighten it a little bit and kind of tone it down without making it chalky. So, anyway, right? So, and again, I do my paintings and I'm not concerned about it being exactly like the last one I did. I'm more concerned that I'm having fun and doing something that I like. That's how I kind of paint. So you kind of can see the kind of layers of vegetation that you have kind of coming down here. You have a couple of the mountains in the background that we'll put in, a couple mountains back here. Right? Down here. Okay. And you notice I'm just kind of blocking things in. Again, one of the reasons I don't like to draw with pencil is that it kind of is stifling, it kind of restrictive, you know? Because then I have to follow the lines, and I don't want to follow the lines. I want to just have fun, right? Okay. So this is step one. Remember in that thing I was showing you, just kind of blocking in. And let's talk about kind of what are the basic shapes that I have here. So you have obviously the sky is one, the trees, right? Two, the foreground, three, and the mountains, four. When you reduce it down into simple shapes, God, four shapes, what's the big deal, right? But within those shapes, there are different colors, right? So you have to, you know, be quite ready to really, you know, play with those shapes and kind of modify them. Nothing is set in stone. Now I do have a color here that's my, this is a Holbein olive green. And I found that here in Southern California, things tend to be very olive green, as opposed to like sap green. Sap green is more like back east, Tennessee, and you know, bluegrass. Out here, the greens have much, just look out at that, you know, orange tree over there. It had much more orange in them. So I always start with my olive green to put in kind of the shapes. When I do trees, I start with the darkest color. I paint in the dark first. You go dark to light. And I always say, you know, people say thin to thick. I say thick to thicker. Try not to, you know, my students say, tiny little piles of paint and stuff, and I go, what, you know, how can you even have fun doing that? It's like, get that paint out, put it on, be bold, be brave, love the paint, right? So that's how I try to paint, is I try not to get too worried about details when I'm first going out. I'm basically just working on the shape of that tree. That it's more than one tree, obviously, but you know, that the shape that tree makes. And what the other thing, you know, the wonderful, you know, negative space around that tree is beautiful. So I want to capture that too, right? Okay. I'm just gonna, and I put a bunch of paint out obviously before I came, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. But you know, honestly, this is when I go out. This is kind of what I have on my palette. I have a lot of paint out there. I don't want to really stop. I want to just keep painting. The sun changes too quickly when I'm out painting plein air. I want to be able to just keep painting. Okay.
Sharon, do you use like your plein air paintings as references and then work in the studio as well?
I do. But you know, honestly, I find that my plein air paintings kind of stand on their own. And I don't, I tend to do studio work and then do, you know, my plein air. They're kind of separate.
Do you use photos then for, you know?
I do.
Oh,
I do. I work from photos. But I know they lie to me.
Okay.
I know they do. And I know how to adjust and to work with them to make them look the way I want them to look. So they don't look like I'm copying a photograph. You know, guys, I'm a little bit cold. That's why I'm coughing. Yeah. Put my jacket on. Well,
We got
painting,
our heater around here.
painting plein air, you know, you're always prepared. That's the trick.
Yeah, this is the heater is staying inside.
The trick is to be
But,
prepared.
The trick is going to be getting it closer.
Okay.
Sorry. And I do wanna work on this echo because it's really bothering me. So while the Zoom audience is on a close-up, I'm gonna see if I can refine the audio here. I don't know, on the other side. I don't know, it's all be. That is it, I think.
I don't hear it now.
Go.
Oh,
I think it is.
I think it's
Is it
still.
still echoing? Oh, it is a little bit, isn't it?
Much
Well, I think it's better though, it's not as loud, right?
Right. Now you can see how I'm putting in, you know, the
No, it's,
darks.
hold on.
Nope, it's still there.
I don't
Oh,
know if
well.
you completely take that. I think it's.
So, if you're looking, let's say you're doing that in studio.
I'm sorry?
You're starting that in studio, and you have a photograph that you're working from, and it's not completely clear to you where the sun is coming from.
Oh, there it is.
Like, sometimes I struggle with figuring out in my mind where the sun is, so the shadows.
That's absolutely, yeah, if you can't figure that out, then the reference isn't very good.
Right.
Then you have to think about, is this really a reference I want to paint from? You can't figure out where the sun's coming from. I mean, even if it's a cloudy day, you can kind of see the shadows and stuff. So one of the things I'm always thinking of, why am I painting this? What's my motive? What is it about this that is attracts me? What do I want to capture here? Why am I doing it? So I'm gonna just put in, now I made this green down here a little bit bluer because this is a little bit further back. This is a clump of trees kind of behind here, right? So I'm gonna make that a little bit greener. Oh no, did I?
What you need?
Son of a gun. I think I forgot my, I forgot one of my keys, I think. I did. Okay.
So we
I use a rubber,
those rubber brushes.
a rubber tipped sculpting tool. And it takes out the color, and it's really neat because you can get in the branches that way. So let me see. I'll figure something out. I'll use the back of this. Maybe I can use the back of this rubber tip too. Okay. So I'm just gonna finish up. Now, whenever I do trees, this is how I do them. I put the darkest in, then I mix a mid-tone and a highlight and put those over top, right? Because even when you have the area that's in the sun, when I look at it, I see dark coming through the leaves. You can see a little bit of dark kind of coming through. One of the things that I think most people do is when they get to the lighter part of putting in the tree, they make it always too light. Because look at this a tree against the sky. Is the sky lighter or is the tree lighter? Almost always the sky will be lighter, right? So the color has to be a little darker than the sky, always, even when it's in sunlight, okay? All right, and now I'm gonna go down and put in some of the ground cover. Actually, I can still use that same one, same brush. I tend to, like I said, when I'm first putting in, things go in fast and furious. I'm just trying to get in the color quickly in order to just get in those shapes. Just working on simple shapes, right? Need a little bit more yellow in there. Yeah, there we go. Now, all I'm doing is this step number 3 here, right? Just blocking in those simple shapes. Now this is further back, obviously, this is dropping back, so I want it just a little bit lighter. And this is where I see I can add that little bit of shell pink to it, which will lighten it up, but won't make it real chalky. It'll lighten it up, but not chalky. Right?
Yeah. Thank you. That might be. Oh, overhead. Yeah.
Got it?
It's okay. I got a hard
You okay? So I'm gonna
Position it so it.
do a little bit with this, and hopefully this will work as well as my other thing. But because this is kind of a rubber tip too. So let's see if I can do this. Yeah, it's gonna work. Notice the light is coming from this way, hitting the front of the trunks, right? So I have to figure out where the front of that trunk is. And I have, like I said, I usually use a rubber tipped tool that I have. It's a sculpting tool.
Sharon, is that the rubber sculpting tool?
It's not. It's actually the handle of my palette knife because I forgot it. So I'm just going to use that. Now, what's really neat about using this is, as you can see, I can really kind of get a real feel of the tree. Now, I noticed that I kind of screwed up here, so I'm going to just, it's so easy to kind of go over, right, and just fix. So I'm going to bring this, actually, I want this to kind of come from here. There's a branch that comes out kind of down here, and then there's one that comes up higher that's right about here. It comes up over here like that, yeah. And so this kind of comes out like this and does this right here, right? So you really get kind of a nice feel for it. And, you know, of course, it's very easy to just go over and, you know, cover up what you don't like if you see something that you don't like. Okay. Again, you know, I'm not concerned that it looks exactly like the other painting. I'm more concerned that I like what this painting is doing and like what I see, right? And another thing, walk away. Walk away from your painting and give yourself a little bit of room to kind of look at it and see what you're doing, right? And there's another branch that comes here. It comes over here. Right? Fun, huh? And this way I get to kind of really see what I'm doing and what that painting kind of looks like from the get-go. Right away, I kind of have, you know, a good feel of what the painting is going to look like. And I've only been working 15 minutes. It's so gratifying, you know? And if you get lost in the details and you're just, you know, so into like worrying about like every little leaf and branch and stuff, you know, first it takes away the spontaneous, you know, abilities that you have in painting, and secondly, you know, it doesn't look as good. You know, honestly, when you're having fun with it, it shows, right? Okay. Now, I'm gonna put in some trunks, now that I know where they're going. Because wasn't that easy to figure that all out? Really fun. Okay, so the other thing, when I paint, I say to my students, they look at something and they say, oh, it's gray. I say, no. As an impressionist painter, it's either blue, red, or yellow. Every color in the universe is mixed from those three colors. Blue, red, and yellow. Those are the primaries, right? So, when I look at the trunks, they're red. That's where they start. They're red, okay? So if I want to, play with them, start with alizarin crimson, add in a little bit of blue, add in a little bit of yellow, right? A little bit more blue, and I have like a nice neutral color, right? Now, are the trunks darker or lighter? Are they darker or lighter than the ground? I think they're probably a little. I mean, than the background of the trunk of the trees. I think they're probably a little lighter, right? So I'm going to add a little bit of. Again, I love this shell pink because it really is nice to have that.
Does the shell paint keep it from getting kind of pasty instead of white?
Exactly, it keeps it from getting chalky. That's why I like the shell pink. You can use any kind of white that has a little color in it. It'll keep it nice. And I'm gonna add again a little bit of my Gamsol so that my paint is kind of the consistency of ink. So it's not quite so thick. So it's gonna yeah, see, it's not like water. It's not as runny as water, but it's not as thick as the paint. So that I can kind of, put in those trunks. Kind of. And they all should have a little bit slightly different color. So maybe I'll add a little yellow to this one, Now it picks up the green as I'm going up, it's picking up the green. So I have to go back in. Right? Okay. So I'm getting some of
We're doing the shadow areas right now of those trunks.
I'm sorry?
You're doing the shadow areas
of the trunk, exactly. The shadow area of the trunk.
You mentioned earlier that that's where the color, you mentioned the difference between the colors in the shadows and
Well, like I said, whenever I talk to my students about stuff and they're always, oh, it's brown, or oh, it's gray. Try not to think of it that way. Try to see it as either yellow, red, or blue, because that will really help you to understand how the color works. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is when a branch is on the tree, it's light, but when it's on the sky, it's dark. So it'll come up dark up here, right? Right. I'm going to add a little bit more of this. And I have another brush that I use for really fine branches that I'll show you. Okay. So now I've got the trunks in. So I'm going to walk back again and take a look. Yeah, now it's starting to come together a little. All right, so let's play a little bit with different colors now. Now I want to get the tree and use different colors in there because I'm at a point. Okay. Okay. Well, actually, let's do the sky next, because I'm going to follow this. You know, I don't follow it exactly when I'm painting sometimes, because you know I'm interested in one thing and I want to continue on it, but it's better if I do it the way I tell you to do it. Okay, so sky. You can start with ultramarine blue and white, go to cobalt blue and white, go down to add some yellow to it, and go down here and have peach. And do it all where it blends beautifully. So let me actually just put in the mountains. So it's a little white, a little blue, right? And I'm going to add a little transparent oxide red to it to just kind of knock it down a little bit. Put those mountains in. Darker here. Gets darker as it comes front. A little bit darker. Right? Just a little bit more blue with a little bit more transparent oxide red. Right? The other thing is people always say, oh, you know, what about, can I do the sky first and then put the tree on top? And my advice is no. And the reason why is because what happens is it looks like you've cut the tree out and it's pasted on top of the sky. You want to think of your painting as a puzzle piece, puzzle pieces, and keep it open where you need it, and put the sky, you know, only around it. And part of that really has to do with it looking like it's part of, you know, they're together. Otherwise, like I said, it looks like you've cut the tree out and pasted it on top, right? Okay. So now, let's do the sky. Okay. I'm going to do a couple of kind of piles of paint.
Do you keep your brown puddles?
Right over here.
Oh, okay.
I did. So I'm going to take a couple of piles of paint, and I'm going to start with ultramarine blue. Now the sky is not one color, right? When you look straight up, you're looking through less atmosphere, straight up, right? So the sky is darker straight up. So the higher you go, the darker it's going to be. As you come down closer and closer to the horizon, you're looking through more and more atmosphere. That's why it changes color. So as the closest it is to the horizon, the lighter it is, right? So I'm going to start with ultramarine blue with white. And how dark do I want that darker at the top. I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit, okay, because I think it's more interesting for the guys who are watching Zoom, for them to see it, have it a little bit more exaggerated. So I'm going to go quite dark at the top, even a little darker than, you know, what it might actually be, but that's okay. And then I'm going to go to the next pile, and I'm going to use cobalt. I use cobalt instead of cerulean, or a blue that has a lot of green in it. Somebody said, oh, you don't have cerulean on your canvas, on your palette, you need to add it. And I added it, and for like 3 months I painted, and I hated every one of my paintings and didn't know why until I said, oh, it's the cerulean. I just find cerulean to be an unpredictable color to mix with, because I don't know what's in it. It's not a straight color. Cobalt blue is as clean a blue as you can find. It is blue, and just blue, right? So I like that. I like the fact that it's so pure and that I can predict what it's going to do. Okay, so I'm coming down and I'm going to add a little bit of green into that next one. Next one is going to be a little bit greener. More turquoisey. So I'm going to get into more of a turquoise color. And then down at the bottom, you can see that I have almost a pink color. Actually, it's not pink, it's more of a yellow color. But I could go actually kind of a pink too if I wanted to on the horizon. Let me just. And again, notice that I add that shell pink to it. And it's really, the shell pink just makes it a really yummy color. It really makes it pretty. All right, so what I'm gonna do here is now I'm gonna just kind of slap it on the canvas. Okay. And like I said, I'm kind of exaggerating this a little bit because I know that at home, it's hard to see some of the lighter colors. They don't come up on Zoom. I learned that when I was teaching on Zoom that I had to kind of exaggerate the lighter colors. But this will be fun. I'm going to take that turquoise and just add a bit of white to it. As I bring it down, it's going to get lighter. And down at the very bottom, I'm going to put the yellow. Okay. Now, what you need to do now is you need a big brush that's clean. You take the biggest brush you have. Let me see if I have a bigger brush in mine. I think I do. Yeah. Nice big brush. And I'm going to start to kind of fill in at the top. And you can do this, like, think of this for a sunset too, where it's blue at the top and it gets red and pink down at the bottom, right? So you're just going to start to, and remember the sky isn't solid. So I see people go, they're so, deliberate about the brushstroke being like straight across or up. The sky is transparent. So I do kind of random brushstrokes in the sky. I tend to not have it be a very hard line. They tend to be soft, kind of random like that. So now I'm going to get rid of that and come down and go into this lighter part, right? And bring this over. And some people say, oh, but you're getting, that the green is getting into the sky. Don't worry, it's okay. It's actually, when you look at the edges of trees, they aren't so hard. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of that green, the green of the tree go into the sky like that. Kind of works. So I'm gonna just kind of, and look at what happens when you do this. Look at this. Okay, now I'm going to kind of get rid of that color. Get rid of that. Okay. And then go.
This is one of the nicest demonstrations of how there's a rainbow everywhere you look because of the prisms in the air.
I've heard that before, but this really exemplifies that very well.
Yeah, you guys, you know, push those colors. It's so much fun. So I'm gonna just continue here, right, down here. Like I said, I'm exaggerating the colors a little bit, but it's kind of good to see it a little bit exaggerated so you can kind of really see it, right? And then I'm going to just, oh, so pretty. Let me look back, let me walk away. Let me look at what I've done. Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, I'm loving it. Okay. Now I go down here where it's a little lighter. I might add a little bit more white to this down here.
Can you send a shout out to Lisa Mahoney?
Lisa Mahone.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay. So I'm going to add a little bit more white down here. Just, you know, lighten it up just a little bit. Again, just play with that big brush to get that wonderful color kind of coming down into here, right? Right, and then I'm gonna just wipe off a little bit of that. Now I'm going to go into the yellow. I'll just pick up a little bit of that yellow on my brush to kind of get it ready, you know, and come down in here. And I actually want a little bit more pink on there. I'm gonna get a little bit more of the pink down below. Paper towels. One thing you have to do here is, you know, try and keep your brush from getting, you know, muddy. You don't want to let things get out of control. You have to keep, let that paint know who's boss. But you want to just get rid of this. Okay. Let's go away and see. What does it look like? Oh, yeah. Now you can see, I mean, like I said, I exaggerated the colors just to show you that it doesn't have to be close. I mean, you can work with a purple up here if it's a sunset, and go down to orange down here, you know, and do the same kind of thing. Now, you know, I have these piles here. So one of the things I can do now is go in and put in those sky holes, right? Now notice I still am using this big brush. I'm not using a tiny little brush. I'm not on details yet. I'm still on step 3, blocking in. Because even though you're blocking in the basic shapes here, there are different colors within those areas. This is the sky, but look at all the different colors in the sky, right? Different colors, different values, but it's just one shape. I think of it as one whole shape. Same thing with the trees. And I'm going to go into the trees next with the midtone and the lights. We'll see that, okay? So now I have these wonderful colors here that I can go back in and put in some of the sky holes. So let's see where I need some of these sky holes, right? Now, some people worry about that the sky holes need to be darker. And yeah, I guess they could. They do need to be a little darker than the sky itself, you know. But nobody's complained if I don't worry about it too much.
That the sky would be dark?
The sky holes should be darker in the trees.
Really?
That's what they say.
Is that like an optical thing or something?
Yeah, it is. You know, I don't really worry about it too much, honestly. I put it in. Sometimes I remember to do it, and sometimes I don't. But yeah, they say that.
Maybe because of the contrast?
And part of this, you know, I'm picking up quite a bit of that green, so it's kind of making it a little muddy or dirty anyway. And you know, the thing about the trees, remember that leaves are moving. You know, they're not static. So if you have a little bit of dirt in the sky there, that kind of works, right? Kind of works. Okay. So now we have, I've completed step 3, right? This is the most fun to watch being done because a lot happens, right? You can see kind of how the basic shapes are taking, the basic painting is taking shape and how it's working. Now you start getting into the nitty-gritty of the details though. Now I'm going to go to a smaller brush, right?
What size is that brush? Is that like a 10 or something?
I'm saying this one here, yeah, this is an 8, but you know, the numbers don't mean anything because each manufacturer is different. It's not like a plumber where you know there's a certain size, it's every one of them is the same size. For some reason, brush people don't do that. I don't know why. It just drives me crazy. Right. Anyway, so okay. Now I do want to save the sky because I may need these colors later. So I'm just gonna, and all of this is what this is over here winds up being. This is all the leftover paint that I have that I want to save, right? I just put it over here so I have it still. In case I need it for anything else. And then I'm just gonna clean off my palette. And you can see I have a pretty small palette. This is my traveling palette. This is the palette I took into the Eastern Sierras when I went with the Pack 6. I'm one of the Pack 6 group. If you're familiar with us, we're 6 women who travel, intrepid travelers who go around all over the Southwest painting. And one of the main trips that we did was a trip into the Eastern Sierras where we went in on horseback and camped out for a week with no running water and no toilet. Yes, it was amazing. It was a trip of a lifetime. We went to Lake Adiza, which is actually where Edgar Payne painted. We used to go in and
that the group that you started when you were the Scranton and the Plein Air Club?
Yep. Yep.
And Diane?
No, not Diane. Diane wasn't in. Marion Fortunati and Laura Wamsgan and a bunch of us. So we've got the 6 of us all traveling out there. All right. So I'm looking at this and I'm not liking that tree down there. So I'm gonna just refine some of the shapes and improve them a little bit. Let's take this and add to this a little bit. All right. One of the things I think that is so interesting with people is that they get there's that white color there. How do you cover that? You just take a lot of paint and you go up instead of down. You don't mix it. You just put it right on top of it. Wet on wet really teaches you to be able to kind of do these things in a way that I think is a lot more fun. And honestly, my studio paintings, I tend to paint them the same way as I do my plein air. And I think you can see that, from how I'm doing this. I tend to not really get into too much detail right off the bat. I try to be spontaneous and kind of let things flow. I'm gonna just kind of.
Do you have an exhibit coming up in the near future?
I don't have too much happening this year because we actually the Pack 6 will be showing at the Santa Paula Art Museum next year. So our next big show is coming up next year. Yeah. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work what we do. We did I think we did 3 trips last year. We went to Hope Valley. Would anybody, do you know, guys know where Hope Valley is? Yeah, it's up near Tahoe. It's south east of Tahoe. And it's a very interesting place because it's a lot like Colorado. It really makes you think of Colorado because it's got these wonderful aspen trees against the Blue Mountains, you know? So it's really quite lovely. Let's see now. And walk away. Remember to always walk. Oh, now, see, those look like a trees there. Okay. Yeah, now we're talking. Now, I'm much happier with the shapes and what that looks like now. Now they look like a grove of trees back there. This, like I said, was at Kenneth Hahn, and the city, LA, is actually right in there. So I didn't paint LA because it was there. Doesn't mean you have to paint it. You can make those decisions. You know, you can let things, drop out of your painting and not include them if you decide to. That's okay. And I'm going to just start to kind of refine some of the shapes up here too and play with some of the shapes and look at what I want to kind of refine here. Okay. I think this is a little bit too wide up there. And this is where, again, I've got my sky colors saved so I can go in here and just kind of block out some of this because it's a little bit too much right there. I want a little bit of the sky right up there too, right?
Are you gonna need a break at all? You don't have to take it.
I don't need a break. I can take a break, but I don't need one.
Just thinking.
I can continue. I'm fine. Now I'm gonna, like I said, just kind of start to put in a little bit more paint up here, a little bit more of the green. Notice. But I'm going to let some of that darker color kind of sit there too and come through. I never kind of eliminate all of it. You want to allow some of that to come through in the back. Have it a little bit greener though. So looking a little bit brown. I want
Hey, can we switch to the other camera? We can't see what Sharon's doing.
so I'm adding
Oh,
some
yeah.
details and colors. One of the things that the eucalyptus does, or this particular tree, is that the shapes of the foliage are kind of crescent shaped. So they're quite lovely in how they come around and, make that wonderful shape. And I like to kind of exaggerate that a little bit. But it's not everywhere. You don't want to have it every place. You want to have some of it to be not that shape happening. One of the things you have to do with painting is unity but variety. And those two seem to be contradictory. They seem to not really work together. You're like, But you have to allow yourself to see the big shape, but not make all the trees the same and all the foliage, just a repeat of the same shapes over and over. You have to be careful. So there's a fine line that you walk, right? Very fine line. So see, all that this is doing is kind of adding dimension to the tree. It's adding character to the leaves and things. I'm just kind of bringing the foliage up to the sky holes, right? And kind of working them in and working around sky holes, seeing how they would work, right? Now let me walk back, always, everybody, you know, if you're like this, you don't really see it. How many of you guys have been over to the Getty and seen the Van Gogh painting of the irises? Yeah. You walk in, and isn't it like it just hits you when you walk in that room from across the room? I don't care how many other paintings are in there, but that one you just go, oh my God, right? It's because the composition is so strong. It's just dynamic, unbelievable across the room. So then you get closer and you see, ooh, there's all kinds of colors and brush strokes and thick paint, and oh my gosh, you know? And then you get right up to it and you go, it's a holy mess and it doesn't even look like anything, and how did he do that? Right? So if you're like this, you're never gonna kind of get that feel. You know that Monet and some of the other impressions, they used to paint with brushes that were like a yard long. From, you know, across the room. He'd add stuff from here. That's how he painted. So, you know, if you're right up in and so worried about every little close-up detail, perfection is highly overrated. Try not to think of making it perfect. Who cares? Most of my, and many of my best paintings, some of the things on them, the best part of them have been spontaneous, somewhat mistakes. And then I go, oh, well, that works, okay. You know, have fun with it. Okay. So now I'm gonna continue down here. Like I said, the large details, the details become a little bit more difficult to see and not as exciting as blocking in. And details, I think, are the hardest thing to kind of teach people. How to put in the details and what to do. Because it's so personal. Such a personal thing. But you can see I'm just kind of blocking in the foliage, kind of getting a little bit more depth to it, a little bit more richness in the color, right? Kind of showing up and getting it to look a little bit richer, right?
What colors are you using right now? That green?
This is my olive green that I have, which I love. And now I'm just kind of, you know, I like this part up here, but this part seems a little bit too much. So I'm gonna just get rid of some of the sky hole here because it's just a little too much, right? And I'm refining my shapes. And this is just a little too much over here too. I either have to get rid of some here or some here. So I have to kind of decide what I want to do. I'm refining my shapes, right? Refining the shapes. Getting so that I like what's happening. Now I'm going to get rid of this down here too. Right? Now let's see what I like. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Okay. All right. Well, I'm wondering about this one. I think I'm going to get rid of that one too. All right? Yeah. Okay. Now I like that better. Now, on the tree, obviously, I want to, you know, I have these trees that are back here. They're behind the big eucalyptus grove, and they're a little bit bluer, a little bit of a bluer green and slightly lighter. So I'm just gonna play with these and kind of put in some of the edge work along the edges of these, right? There's another grove behind the main grove here. It's a little bit lighter, not quite so dark. And again, trees, the edges of trees are soft. So it's kind of nice to allow them to kind of soften up against that sky color. And you can only do that when it's wet on wet. If you let everything dry and then go back in and put the tree in, you're gonna have these really hard lines. And it's not really, it doesn't really look realistic, you know? That's why wet on wet is, it really is so nice to play with and kind of work with. And just kind of, play with that edge and soften that edge a little bit. Why not, right? Doesn't that look better when it's softened than when it's a hard edge there? Just think about that the next time you're playing with your trees. Trees are not rocks, right? They have soft edges, right? Oops, what did I do? Okay, now, let me see. Oh, so now I can go in and put in the highlights. The sun's coming from this way, right? So I want to put in the highlights on the tree out there. And again, I find that the trees in Southern California have a lot of orange in them. So I'm going to add orange to that color, right? I'm going to add orange to my green and kind of play with a little bit of that. Let me see what that looks like. That's a little too orange. Go back in and put a little. I have another green color on here that's called cadmium green that I like a lot too. It's a lot of fun to play with. I'm gonna add a little too orange, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue. There we go. So this is the mid color that I have on the edge of this. So this goes on where the light is on the edge here. And again, I can even soften those edges even more. Wherever I have that light coming across, I'm going to have that hit the foliage, right? Soften this edge here. I'm going to have another edge right here. And I'm not thrilled with this. I'm going to have a little bit of sky come through here. Just a little bit of sky. Okay. Yeah. And look at how thick the paint is I'm using. It's nice and yummy. You can see the brush strokes. I took a workshop from Calvin Liang. You guys know him? Familiar with his work? Beautiful stuff. And he's Chinese, and he showed promise when he was quite young, and they put him into school, art school, when he was quite young. And he told this story because I noticed he never used the same brush stroke twice in a row. Never see anybody paint the way he paints. When he was young, they used to hit his hand if he did the same brush stroke twice in a row. So he paints, he goes, bloop, 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 bloop. I mean, like I said, I've never seen anybody paint the way he paints. I can't do it. But try and remember that you get hypnotized into using the same brush stroke over and over and over again. Try to stop that. Try to stop yourself, and allow yourself to again, variety. Add variety to your brush strokes. So now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna lighten this, and I'm gonna add a little bit of orange to it for the very lightest areas on the tree. But you can see that even the lightest areas are going to have still quite a lot of color in them. They have to be darker than the sky, right? Variety. Remember variety. How's that looking now? Let me go back and look. Back and look. Oh yeah. It's looking like a tree. Yeah, okay. I'm liking this color right in here too, against this dark. Ooh, that's fun. Yeah, right there. That's real nice. And this is why, guys, even though I've painted this painting 4 times. But, I still have fun doing it. Still have fun. Think about Monet. He painted the same thing 25 times. 35 times. He did series of things that I would never want to paint, like the cathedral series, but you look at it and you go, oh my God. Because it's not about the subject. It's about what you do with the paint. That's really what it's about, right? It's not about the subject. Who cares? He did his haystacks and stuff. The series of haystacks that he did too. And then of course, the lily pond, the pond. But it was he really understood that it was all about the paint and not about the subject. Although, obviously the pond is beautiful. All right, well, I think that's working pretty well. Now, one of the other things I need to do is, so does anybody have questions? Talk to me, guys. What time is it? Who's got questions? Yeah, it's almost time. We're getting there. I would, of course, go back in and use like a peach color to put the highlights in that I had, remember I had taken them out with that, my palette knife, the back of my palette knife. And I can kind of play with that even a little bit more here. Do just a little bit more with it. Oops, I don't like that one.
Getting a really nice canopy in there. The feeling of the.
Right?
Yeah.
Could you go over what you're gonna do with the foreground?
Well, the foreground, basically, I have, there's lupine in there. So, I should have brought that purple that I used because I really cannot quite mix it, but I'll try. And then I would put in a little bit of a neutral color. So I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna add some white to it. And a little bit of yellow. I need something on there to show the ground kind of coming through. So I need a little bit of transparent oxide red, and yellow, right? And white. I'm just gonna. Yeah. So I'll take my palette knife and I can just kind of. Let some of the ground kind of show through there, right? Right? Fun, huh? Right? And then I'm gonna just, I can go back over, let me get my green brush. If this is too much, I can just go back over with it. Go back in and soften that a little bit, right? Right? And then there are these beautiful, one of the reasons I stopped to paint this in the middle of LA, and there were lupine everywhere. It was so amazing. I'd never seen it before, and it was so crazy. I asked one of the caretakers there, and he said he'd never seen it like this ever before. It was all purple and beautiful. So I don't think I can get quite the purple that I want in there, because I can't quite get as bright a color. But, basically I would, let's do a blue, a nice blue. using my cobalt and a little bit of red. I'll make it a little bit lighter than it probably was. It's quite, and I just would take my brush and go across and put some of the lupine in there. Right? I'm not doing an individual plant. There's a whole bunch of them on the hill, so I'm just going to take a big brush with a bunch of paint on it and just kind of bring it across, right? That's how you do it. I see people doing flowers and each individual flower. It's like, no, that's never going to work. So there you go. All right, guys. I think we're done. If anybody has questions?
I have a question, but it's not really about your painting as much as the color.
Uh-oh.
I've been thinking about doing Richard Schmidt, color, you know, this.
Oh, the squares. Yeah, I did them.
Did you?
I did.
Is that what we're doing?
Yes. You don't have to do every single color on your palette, but it did help me to figure out what colors I really liked. For instance, a lot of people don't understand yellow ochre and how beautiful a color yellow ochre is when mixed with the other colors, how it makes beautiful peaches and beautiful greens and just really wonderful colors. It helps you to understand each color's range and what it can do in your
Before
painting.
everybody leaves, could you sign our
You know.
visitors?
But I think that
And receive our email?
it's well worth doing. It is. It's tedious, but like I said, I did about 8 of them, I think, and then I stopped. That was enough. I learned that's one of the things that helped me realize I hated cerulean. Color is very personal.
Yeah.
It's subjective. It's I can't tell you what you may love cerulean. You know, I don't know, but I just didn't. And I looked at my chart that I did with of all the colors and the mixing, and I just didn't like any of the colors. It's very unnatural looking to me. It didn't look like nature.
Right.
Yes.
You go to Plein Air and then right after, do you varnish it right away or do you?
Oh no, never. I wait to varnish. I really don't varnish my paintings for like 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If I'm in a plein air event that I have to show the paintings that probably are going to sell, I'd use a spray varnish. That's a reworkable varnish. You know, it's not a permanent thing, but it does help to kind of even the shine and make them look good. Yeah.
Before everybody leaves,
Okay.
You are welcome to, we have a plein air show currently, right now, going on, and a little mini show by Laura Jeff. Is Laura here? Laura.
The other question I have.
Come on up, Laura.
Do you know who Michael Drury is?
Do
Do you know who Michael Drury is in Santa Barbara? He's one of the Oak Wood painters.
So if you need to, if you want to get out with Ventura County, you have to stand here.
Well,
Laura, could you say a couple of words to the people who are in Zoom? That's where it is. I think that's it. Okay, everybody, I'd like your attention because I want Laura to tell us a little bit about the plein air group that we have here in town with VAA, right?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We try to go out once a week and I mix up the days so that it can appeal to a lot of people. Come out with your sketchbook if you don't feel like painting. Just come check us out if you are afraid and want to see how it works.
What days did you say you're here?
We mix up the days. So find us on Facebook, Plein Air Ventura County, and check out the events, and you can see where we're going to be each week.
And can they call the VAA office and also find out here?
Well, sure. Yeah, feel free to call us.
Yeah, we're
This
linked.
postcard is about the Plein Air Art Association, if you want to pick it up and join us.
We are linked to BAA, so they have the info. If you can't find us through our webpage, find us through BAA.
We are also a nonprofit association, so any little donations that you care to give.
So we have a Plein Air show at Studio 99 right now. They are open Fridays and Saturdays, 1 to 4.
Noon to 4.
Noon to 4. And we're having an art reception on first Friday, February 3, 6 to 9. So we'd love to see you come out, meet you, and maybe you'll get excited about coming out and painting with us. Great.
Just an extra.
When you're still living there, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, so this is one last thing I wanted to say is thank everybody for coming on Zoom, and that we're gonna be having more demos with our local masters of the region. And so stay tuned to BAA so you can find out what those are gonna be. So, yeah, this is recorded. It will be on the BAA YouTube channel, and we might even stream it live. So thank you, Sharon. Yay! You can stay there and say goodbye.
Bye, everybody, thank you for coming. Go to my website, SharonWeaver.com. Take a look at my little work.
Thank you, that was great.
I'm so glad you came. Please go to my website, sign up for my
Wave goodbye, Sharon. Wave goodbye to everybody up there. Because I'm gonna. Yes, now. Thanks, everybody.